Do you guys mind if we sit here and talk about Ellen DeGeneres for a second? Because her story, it's a really interesting story. At one point in her life, she was one of Hollywood's biggest success stories. Now, not so much. Ellen Lee DeGeneres was born on January 26, 1958 in Louisiana. She did not come from Hollywood. She came from a regular Southern family. But her childhood, by her own account, was not easy. When her parents got divorced, her mother remarried a man by the name of Roy. Years later, Ellen would reveal that her stepfather, Roy, as a teenager, using the pretext of her mother's cancer diagnosis, he would use that excuse to put his hands on her. He would say that her mom had lumps on her, so he had to feel Ellen just to be safe. She was roughly 15, 16 years old at the time. She told her mother did not believe her. In fact, she stayed married to that man for 18 more years. Ellen started doing stand-up comedy in New Orleans in the 1980s, dropping out of the University of New Orleans after exactly one semester. She did well enough there that she started working her way up to bigger and better things, but her big break came in 1980. When Johnny Carson called her one of the funniest people in America after she appeared on his show, The Tonight Show. It was her first appearance on national television, and she was the first female comedian on that specific show. That put Ellen on the national radar. By the early 1990s, she had made the move to LA, and she was having conversations about her next move. Then in 1994, she joined the ABC sitcom These Friends of Mine. That show was renamed Ellen after only the first season, and by the third season, it was regularly placing in the top 20 most watched shows on American television. Ellen DeGeneres was what everyone called a rising star. But then things changed for her because by 1996, rumors had started to circulate. Rumors that both Ellen, the character that she played on the show, as well as Ellen, the real person, were gay. And Ellen's character on the show was building toward doing something that no American network television series had ever done, making its lead character openly gay. And then the episode came out where Ellen's lead character in the show came out to her therapist. An estimated 42 million Americans watched that episode. It was nearly 3 times the show's normal view count. That happened at the same time that Ellen DeGeneres came out in real life. In April of 1997, she appeared on the cover of Time magazine next to the words, "Yep, I'm gay," making her TV's first openly gay star, according to the article. So she began openly dating another female actress, and Ellen DeGeneres was then unable to find work for the following 3 years. Quote, "I did what was right. I came out, which was good for me, and ultimately it was the only thing I could do. And then I got punished for it. I was so angry. I was just so angry," end quote. Keep in mind, this was in the 90s, so things were different back then. The ratings of the show declined very quickly shortly after that episode aired, and it was ultimately canceled completely in 1998. Ellen DeGeneres quite literally didn't know what to do. A second sitcom called The Ellen Show on CBS ran just 13 episodes before that was canceled in 2002 because it was not performing well at all. She described herself in interviews as depressed, broke, and professionally blacklisted. She had done something genuinely brave, and she was paying a very real price for it. Her girlfriend at the time was Anne Hesh. The two dated from 1997 to 2000. They broke up in August of 2002, with both sides initially describing the breakup to have been amicable, but years later, Anne told a very different story. She came out and said that Ellen had been extremely controlling throughout the entirety of their relationship, and that after their breakup, Ellen used the connections that she had to stop Anne from getting movie roles and or different opportunities. She claimed that the fallout from that relationship damaged her career significantly, and that Ellen had been working behind the scenes to silence her for years. That was kind of the first person who really knew Ellen to speak out and say negative things about her, like someone who was really, really close to her in real life. In September of 2003, Ellen made a comeback. She practically rebuilt her TV career with a talk show that I'm sure every single person in the world knows about. The Ellen DeGeneres Show premiered on daytime television. Nobody was sure that it would work. Ellen had just finished her role in Finding Nemo. She's the voice of Dory, if you guys didn't know. And obviously that was incredibly successful, but just because she was successful in her voice playing Dory didn't mean that she could count on her talk show succeeding as well, but succeed it did. The format of the show was simple. Ellen danced onto the stage at the beginning of every single video. She gave away prizes, surprised people with career-changing gifts, made celebrities play ridiculous games, and ended every single show with the same 4 words or 5 words. She either always said be kind or be kind to one another. For a generation of daytime viewers, Ellen DeGeneres was sunshine in human form. People saw her as proof that you could be gay, you could be yourself, you could survive Hollywood's cruelty and come out the other side. At its peak in a single week in February of 2014, The Ellen Show averaged nearly 4.6 million viewers per episode. Over its 19-season run, it won 64 daytime Emmy Awards, including 12 for Outstanding Entertainment Talk Show. In 2016, Ellen was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She hosted the Academy Awards twice, met just about every single celebrity in Hollywood, and became one of the most defining pop culture's image of the social media era. Ellen DeGeneres was not just a talk show, she was a brand, and she was powerful. But behind the set, with a dancing audience and the Be Kind sign, something else was building. Before things hit the fan for Ellen in 2020, cracks were already beginning to show. Hollywood had been whispering about the noticeable difference between the person Ellen was when she was on TV versus the person that that Ellen was in real life. In 2007, a former writer of the show said publicly that she treated her staff horribly. In 2016, Kathy Griffin wrote in her book about, quote, a beloved daytime talk show host with a, quote, mean streak that all of Hollywood talks about, later confirming that she was talking about Ellen. That same year, actor Brad Garrett posted on social media, quote, sorry, but it comes from the top at The Ellen Show. No more than one who were treated horribly by her, common knowledge, unquote. To which a different actress, Leah Thompson, replied simply, quote, true story, it is. There were cracks, but in the celebrity culture of the time, a mean boss was not exactly breaking news, and in the eyes of majority of the public back then, all of the good that Ellen did outweighed any of the bad. But then she started doing things on camera, on screen, that were a little bit like, that's weird. For example, in 2008, Mariah Carey appeared on The Ellen Show while she was pregnant, but she had not yet publicly announced it. During the interview, Ellen repeatedly pressed her to confirm her pregnancy on camera, at one point offering her drink to see if she would take it, because if she didn't, that would mean that she was pregnant, essentially forcing her to make a public confirmation. Mariah Carey was visibly uncomfortable and she tried to deflect and change the subject, but Ellen just kept pushing. She later revealed that she had actually suffered a miscarriage not long after that appearance and said that Ellen's on-air pressure had forced her to confirm the pregnancy before she was ready. In October of 2019, Dakota Johnson appeared on The Ellen Show, and the interview took an uncomfortable turn that was captured on camera and went massively viral. On air, Ellen mentioned that she had not been invited to Dakota's 30th birthday party, framing it as a joke, but Dakota pushed back directly, telling Ellen on camera that she had in fact been invited and that she had simply not come. The whole interaction was visibly awkward, with Dakota holding her ground while Ellen appeared to be caught in a public lie. And that clip was everywhere on social media because it felt like a rare moment in which a celebrity guest refused to play along with Ellen's whole camera persona. However, it wasn't until 2020 when things really went south for Ellen, because people started wondering if the person that Ellen was in front of the camera was anything like the person that she was off camera. Because one person said that Ellen was rude to them, and then another one, and then another one, and it kind of just felt like a domino effect. On July 17th of 2020, journalist Christy Lee had spoken to 11 current and former employees of the Ellen DeGeneres Show. What they described was a workplace that bore no resemblance whatsoever to the place of happiness that Ellen said she wanted to create on day one. The allegations were specific and in many cases corroborated by multiple sources. Allegedly, staff members were instructed by managers not to speak to Ellen DeGeneres if they passed her in the hallways. One employee who had taken medical leave following an unaliving attempt returned to work and was told that they no longer had a job. Another one was reprimanded for starting a GoFundMe account to cover medical costs not covered by insurance and was ordered to take it down. A third was fired after taking bereavement days for 2 separate family funerals in the same calendar year. A different former staff member stated, quote, it irritates me that people think she's all sweetness and light and she gets away with it, end quote. And another one, quote, that be kind only happens when the cameras are on. It's all for the show, end quote. A different former employee also talked on a podcast about how Ellen's treatment towards her employees meant that there was always a lot of crying in the hallways. And then, which real quick, yes, people are mean and rude and that's not groundbreaking news, it's not shocking, but when you have an entire show based on being kind and you tell your audience at the end of every episode to be kind to one another, but then it comes out that allegedly you are not kind at all, now you're not only mean, but you're also hurting your reputation and credibility, because again, now you're not only rude, but now you have people looking at you like, little bit of a hypocrite, you know what I mean? Anyway, so you guys know the comedian Kevin Porter. In March of 2020, he goes to Twitter and says, quote, Ellen DeGeneres is notoriously one of the meanest people alive. Respond to this with the most insane stories you've heard about Ellen being mean, and I will match everyone with a $2 donation to the Los Angeles Food Bank, end quote. He got thousands of responses. So you have a bunch of former employees alleging that Ellen sucks pretty much, but that's not all, because then 36 more allegations surface, all from former employees, not only against Ellen, but also against 3 of the show's executive producers directly. There were more than 10 allegations of against executive producer and head writer Kevin Lemon. 5 allegations of touching were made against executive producer Ed Glavin, and executive producer Jonathan Norman was accused by one former employee of attempting to perform on him, with 3 other employees corroborating that that employee had told him about the incident at the time. All 3 producers denied the allegations, but all of that talk leads to Warner Media, the corporate entity behind the show, to begin an investigation looking into all these different allegations. Executive producers Ed Glavin and Kevin Lemon were fired, and Jonathan Norman also ended up leaving. Ellen addressed the entire situation on season 18 premiere in September of 2020. She called her summer great sarcastically and then said, quote, I'm so sorry to the people that were affected. I take responsibility for what happens on my show. show, end quote. She also joked, quote, being known as the kind lady is a tricky position to be in, end quote. For many former employees and viewers, the apology felt pretty empty. Also, not everything that I'm telling you guys has been confirmed to be 100% true. Let's make that clear. I'm not accusing anything of anyone. I'm just explaining Ellen's career path, okay? But it's up to you guys to form your own opinion. On that note, do you guys remember this guy? Yeah, unfortunately, I do too. I have to say that in hindsight, one of the clips from Ellen's show that doesn't quite feel right is one from 2020 when Ellen surprised a group of 8 children with cancer with him. Granted, back then, nobody knew the despicable things that this man was doing in secret, but him being affectionate with these little kids, I don't know. It doesn't help that her birthday tweet to him refers to him by name, but ends with, quote, or as I call him, Cuddle McNuggle stuff. You don't need to know why, end quote. If that makes you feel weird, you're not alone. The Ellen Show ended in May of 2022. The final episode was filmed April 18th of 2022 after 19 seasons. But before we finish this video, let's go back to Ellen's ex-girlfriend, Anne Heche, because she is no longer with us. In August of 2022, Anne Heche crashed her car into a house in Mar Vista in Los Angeles. The car went up in flames. She very sadly sustained severe burns and brain damage. She was placed on life support and passed on August 11th of 2022. The LA County coroner ruled it as accidental, stating substances were found in her system at the time of the crash. Her passing brought her and Ellen's relationship back into conversation because of how unexpected and awful it was. Anne had also publicly discussed working on a project in relation to online. The combinations of these facts, the accusations against Ellen, the project that Anne was working on, and her sudden passing was enough to generate a wave of theories that the accident was not just as it seemed. However, there is no evidence that foul play was involved, and the official ruling of it being accidental remains the same. 4 months later, on December 13th of 2022, the entertainment world was hit again. Steven Twitch Boss, the beloved choreographer, DJ, and executive producer of The Ellen Show, was found at a hotel in Los Angeles. He was 40 years old. His wife, Allison, had arrived at a LAPD station that morning to report that he had left home without his car, which was unusual. When authorities found him, a note was found near his body, presumably one that Twitch himself wrote, meaning that he left by choice. The medical examiner ruled that the cause of death was a self-inflicted wound to the head with no signs of foul play. Twitch had joined the Ellen DeGeneres Show as a guest DJ in 2014. In 2020, he was promoted to executive producer. He was universally beloved by the audience, by his colleagues, by those who had worked with him and for him. Another choreographer that was close to Twitch stated that after the 2020 toxic workplace scandal, Twitch had come under immense pressure for publicly supporting Ellen. Quote, people were looking at him like, why are you still supporting this woman? End quote. He stated that he believed that Twitch's mental health had deteriorated significantly in the period following the scandal. So there were people who knew him who had noticed a change in his behavior, but on the other side of that argument, when he passed, his wife only received half of his estate because Twitch did not have a will, which is incredibly odd in a lot of people's opinions. Ellen released a statement, quote, I'm heartbroken. Twitch was pure love and light. He was family and I loved him with all my heart. I will miss him, end quote. The internet was not satisfied with that, and people on the internet once again began to speculate. So there is no credible evidence that Twitch's passing was anything other than what the official investigators concluded that it was. And you guys know I'm not going to tell you anything other than the truth and the actual rulings, but I just thought that it was important to mention because in 2022 and to this day, a significant portion of the internet refuses to accept that Twitch's passing was a result of his choice. So I want to know what you guys have to say about that. Ellen DeGeneres moved to the UK in November of 2024 with her wife, Portia, and it sounds like she's still there living a quiet life, living a life out of the spotlight. Although I did read something about her recently purchasing a $27 million mansion in California, though sources state that it's a temporary winter stay and that the couple does plan on returning back to England. As for her career, she said that she is done with the entertainment industry entirely. Yeah, I keep seeing so many conspiracy theories about Ellen on TikTok, and I've said this before, I would not consider myself to be into conspiracy theories. I like to stick to the facts because too many things, it gets noisy up here, okay? But I would be lying if I said that I didn't think there was something fishy here. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for spending time with me today. Hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.